Hi everybody and welcome. My name is Stuart Haden. I'm a volunteer member with the EMCC and welcome to today's Knowledge Exchange video. We're going to be talking about reflective practice today. I'm delighted to be joined by Ned Skelton. Ned, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Great. So let's just jump straight in, Ned. In terms of the context of reflective practice and in the context of coaching and mentoring, can you tell us a bit more about how you define it and what it really means to us as coaches and mentors?
Well, reflective practice is the bit where I think the learning happens for real. We can all learn theories and models and end up applying them, but it's really in what we learn from how we apply them that really gives us our experience. And the more we do reflective practice, that accelerates our own experience gathering.
Brilliant. And that accelerated learning, I think, is so important. Brilliant. What about how do we do it? Because everyone wants to know, if I'm a coach, mentor, how can I actually access this? What could I do? And because, of course, many people are perhaps doing this subconsciously or just, aware of reflective practice. But what can we actually do to kind of access it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting in sport when you put conscious awareness on your techniques, you develop those techniques faster, and it's very much the same in coaching or any other profession. So I think the reflection is, first of all, just remembering what happened it sounds obvious, but just to remember what really went on in the room and noticing your emotions, and I think that's a key one for triggering where you might need to look at. It's useful sometimes to have a dissociated view of how you did that. So if you can put yourself in an imaginary position and look at the relationships, the dynamics of what happened. And then there comes the stage of actually making meaning of the key bits. So you may select some bits, because maybe you had a good feeling or a bad feeling about some bit. Supervision also supports that in terms of helping to find the bits that we can't see for ourselves to get those new perspectives. So I think the important next steps are you really need to sort of construct some alternatives. What is it that I could do differently? And really working that out. And people seem to do that quite a lot, but it tends to be at a high level. So it's setting yourself some learning goals, but that's not the end of the story. It's actually working out how you will actually start to do this. How will you learn? And that's a key bit that seems to be missing quite often from people's reflections.
Great. And just from hearing you speak then, how might my reflective practice as a coach or mentor perhaps translate, therefore, to the coachee? Because I'm making maybe an assumption, if I'm being reflective, either pre, during or post a meeting, does that translate, do you think, to the coachee to develop their ability to reflect as well? If it's on my agenda, do you think, therefore, it might end up on their agenda as well?
That's a good question. I have to think through how that might happen. But quite often I will ask the coachee or signal to them that I'm going to stop and think.
Okay.
And reflect. And sometimes I'll share it in terms of doing it as a co-coaching relationship, if you like. So, but obviously there's a real benefit from, if I improve my skills, then the coach is going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
And I also get more satisfaction. I mean, that's the key thing. I know I'm becoming a better coach, Yeah,
I'm just really keen that, a lot of what we apply as coaches and mentors, actually something is going on for the coachee as well. So if we're being reflective and need to be reflective, so do they. Like they say that they're not going to get that satisfaction without potentially, obviously it all depends on potentially being reflected themselves. So
yeah, in effect, what we're doing is we're facilitating their reflection from our coaching process.
Yeah, so, great. And why do you think reflective practice is so important right now? I mean, it's obviously something we've been aware of for some time, and I think what we're talking about today is that we're taking a discipline, if you like, but bringing it into coaching and mentoring context, and that's really helpful. But why do you think it's so important right now to what we need to be considering as coaches and mentors?
Well, I think there's a lot of potential in coaching that is not yet being realised. The GROW model is fantastic; it's very good, but it's only a first step, and there's just so much more out there. So it's about really letting go of the models and really developing our skills to facilitate the client in sort of better ways. I like the book on goals that David wrote, was really good in terms of just opening up the debate about, there's not just one goal, and you don't want to go straight for a goal anyway because you close down options, so you need to do exploring before you do that. So it's, I think there's a long way to go before we, understand all of there is to understanding coaching.
Yeah, great. You talked a bit about how we might apply it. Can you just, as we start to kind of finish up this interview, can you share one top tip? It might be something that you've recently applied, or something. If I'm going to be coaching and mentoring this afternoon, what could be one top tip that I might think that I could apply to my conversation this afternoon to encourage that reflective practice for myself?
Well, there's one thing. It actually came up on the CPD day I was attending on Saturday, and it's the power of really looking at the client's first words. So there's I had an example not so long ago, well, probably 10 years now, where a client actually said she wanted help in making a decision, and I modeled making a decision. And actually what I should have asked is, what kind of help do you need? And in the end, I was left, after reflecting on it, that actually she wanted me to make the decision for her. I think that was, so that was part of the bind. So yeah. So write down verbatim the client's first words, and just really reflect on what does that all mean. Really powerful.
Great. And that speaks back to my previous question, why it's so important. If that's what your client was after, then without reflection, that could have been, a block or a leak in terms of what we were doing. So, great.
Yeah. And in that case, I spent a whole session doing the wrong thing. So,
Yeah, which is okay as well. But all right, Ned, thank you very much for your time today. You've also been kind enough to write us an article. For those of you guys watching, you can access the article if you haven't done so already. And for those of you guys watching, we'll wrap up with that. Thanks, Ned.
Okay, thanks, Stuart.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.